Here today on RealAgriculture.com with Ann Dunford from Gateway Livestock Exchange. We're here for the beef market update. Welcome today, Ann.
Hi, Sean.
And since we last talked, some stuff has changed, some hasn't. We're still looking at, I guess we're a situation where we're waiting for calves to come to town. What has been happening on some of the fat cattle issues?
Well, first of all, a very flat fat cattle market over the last probably going on 4 weeks now, of either side of 90 cents. Net for the fat cattle, 150, 151 dressed, and like I say, we've been there for quite some time. Of course, we're entering the long weekend here in Canada with Thanksgiving on Monday, and we know features in the last few weeks have most certainly been going to some of the competitive meats, so demand has slowed. Even in the US we've seen cutouts, which is the wholesale price for beef, dropping back off the levels we saw back in the summertime. So bit of a doldrum, bit of a slower time. But packers are still carrying a lot of inventory here in Western Canada. They're still as much as 3 weeks long with inventory after they've bought them. And again, it's showing us that they are most certainly moving cattle through the system. Their kills are of good size, but one of the big things we're noticing this year is, of course, less cash cattle trade into the U.S. We are moving contract cattle, but the cash cattle are staying here for reasons of basis and Canadian dollar.
Okay, so that was my next question: is why?
Yes.
Why are there no cash cattle?
Well,
going south?
And again, you know, every week we do the math, and the math has still most certainly said they stay here, and that's a basis issue, Sean. So
okay.
Basis is you know, maybe not quite as narrow as it was this time last year, but vis-a-vis the historic average, it's most certainly a narrower spread than we've seen historically. And just a little tidbit on top of that, I think the Pacific Northwest U.S., the packers in Washington State and Utah have been longer bought with their own domestic cattle than they've seen in recent years. So I guess less dependence, less requirement of Canadian cattle to fill that missing gap.
So is there a chance for that to turn around here, or are we kind of now we're stuck with this? Because if you were to roll back the tape, our discussion would have been, you know, a month and a half ago, that hey, we think that this carryout's going to change, and it seems like it's kind of stayed the same.
Yeah.
3 weeks out. Just
a note: you're never supposed to roll back the tape on a market analyst, okay? But so yeah, no, you're right, and I do think that we have seen these inventories stay longer. You know, one could maybe argue this is the new buying regime of you've got this many going out the door, you're going to keep this many coming in the door, and you keep more inventory around you. Is this the new normal for how packers operate? I guess we'll wait and see. I'm not convinced. I hope not too, but I think there is a bit of an argument for that.
How are they doing in terms of, you know, once we get the cattle slaughtered? How are we doing on moving the beef?
Well, the product's moving. I mean, you know, in this industry, if it's not moving, the kills get slowed down right away. So the kills have remained above a year ago on young cattle all through 2010 here in Western Canada. So that's most certainly been a factor. And so you can't say they're not killing cattle and moving beef. They most certainly are. Okay,
let's jump back to the feeder. The calves that are being placed right now. Prices are good still.
The limited calves that are being placed right now.
Yeah, the prices are good. How do they work out profitability wise?
Well, again, and what a guy's going to use for a cost of gain is maybe up for debate, but at this point in time, you're going to be looking at levels today, and again, I'm talking today with a 98.5-cent dollar. I guess you could make the equation look considerably different if that dropped down back to 94 or 95 cents, but at today's dollar, it's most certainly a difficult calculation to suggest that unless there's a come on the live cattle market or a big drop in the Canadian dollar, long story short, Sean, they don't pencil today.
Right, but they could in 2 weeks, like that. We've seen that happen before, where those.
You'd be a good cattle feeder.
Well, yeah, I wasn't. So I guess one of the questions I do have for you: do you think that possibly, like there's been a lot of talk about the cost of feed grains? We've seen corn kind of jumping all over the place. The USDA can't make up their mind about how much carryout they really have. Do you think that maybe we're dialing in too low of a cost of feed at this point?
Well, I think if a person's going to dial in these levels, you better make sure you've got the inventory around you from a grain perspective for what you've got for a cattle perspective, because I do think there's risk of that, Sean, especially as we head into 2011. And I don't care which way you slice it, from a global perspective, all the data and information I see look like tight supplies going into the next crop year. So those kinds of years tend to be fairly explosive as we decide what's going to go into corn or what's going to go into soybeans or whatever the case might be for the next crop year. So is the potential for some wild pricing, no matter what we've got in the bin this year in the cards, I think that's a huge possibility.
And thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks.
Okay.